In House Report 118-76, for what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado
Thank
seek
you.
recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 3, printed in House Report number 118-76, offered by Ms. Pettersen of Colorado.
Pursuant to House Resolution 429, the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. Pettersen, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of my amendment, which would require a certification from the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General that this legislation would reduce opioid overdose deaths. The reason why this is so critical is because we are facing a public health crisis and it deserves a public health response. The current legislation is incredibly problematic for the very harmful mandatory minimum sentences that would be enacted and be very hard to actually address and change in the future. This is deeply personal for me. Like so many Americans, my mom has struggled with an opioid addiction. When I was just 6 years old, she hurt her back and she went home with bottles and bottles of opioids. Unfortunately, after her back healed, my mom found herself physically addicted to opioids. And like so many Americans, she was cut off of her prescription without access to treatment. And my mom said that you fear nothing more than withdrawal, even death. And so like so many people who struggle with addiction who don't have access to treatment, she turned to using heroin to stay well. Ultimately, fentanyl came into the supply chain, started coming in 2016. We saw it hit the coast first and make its way into Colorado. And now we have seen it completely take over the drug supply chain. I know firsthand how absolutely devastating this drug can be for families. My mom overdosed 20 times that year. And in my fight to keep her alive, I saw firsthand how broken the system was. So fentanyl, but I'm one of the lucky ones because I was in a position where I could advocate for my mom as a state legislator to get her the help that she needed. And after being churned in and out throughout ERs, my mom ultimately was able to recover. She's now been in recovery for 5.5 years and is an example of what's possible when we give people the help that they need. So I absolutely want the person who was my mom's dealer, who would show up to the hospital, put heroin mixed with fentanyl in her IV. I want that person to go to jail for a very long time. But if my mom had a mandatory jail sentence, that would have been a death sentence for her and for far too many people out there. We are facing the third wave of the opioid epidemic. It has killed more people than all of the world wars combined. It's important that we address this, that it is an all hands on deck to address it at every level, from additional screening at the ports and the border, additional screening for mail where we know it's coming in, public awareness campaigns about the dangers of taking just one pill with kids who are buying it from social media companies unknowingly and dying from an overdose. Accountability with these social media companies on how we're going to work together to ensure that kids are not able to buy this on their platforms. Increasing access to residential treatment and recovery services like my mom had that are far too often not available for those who are struggling with a disease, a brain disease. And so I absolutely care deeply about this issue. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues on it. But this is not the right answer, and that is why this amendment is so important. And I ask for your support.